Surely Keir Starmer has to take responsibility for the death of a grandfather who seemingly took his own life in prison after being sentenced to 32 months behind bars for his involvement in the disorder over the summer. Peter Lynch, 61, allegedly took his own life in HMP Moorland in Doncaster. That's according to The Telegraph. He pleaded guilty to violent disorder and abusing police. But I think it's worth looking at what Mr Lynch actually did to get such a long sentence. So here's a video of some of that incident.
No, get back now! Get back! Get back now! Get back!
Scum! Praying for our children. I pray for my children. I pray for my children.
He called police scum. He apparently referred to asylum seekers as child killers and rapists, and he said that MPs, the media and some other groups were corrupt. Now, look, I'm not condoning everything he said or did, and I don't think anyone is. But he didn't do anything violent. He didn't set fire to anything. He didn't attack anyone. He had diabetes, thyroid issues, angina, and had recently suffered a heart attack. Did he deserve 2 years, 8 months behind bars? Was that not a death sentence? Sending a very unwell man to prison with the word racist plastered all over his back? If he did take his own life, was he not on suicide watch? Let's not forget that Keir Starmer, in my view, lent on the judges to dish out extremely long sentences.
Over 400 people now have been arrested, 100 have been charged, some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message to anybody involved, either directly or online.
The Home Office then arguably committed contempt of court on a grand scale by already saying that everyone arrested was guilty, which will have heaped more pressure on the judges. The judge who sentenced Mr Lynch is Jeremy Richardson. Well, let's have a little look at him. So, apparently, he is the master of the Inner Temple LGBTQ+ Society. He's previously handed out a suspended sentence to a woman who killed a cyclist. She admitted dangerous driving. A 58-year-old man actually died. The lady who killed him got a 2-year suspended sentence. Judge Richardson also gave a suspended sentence to a man who admitted 4 counts of indecency with a child, 2 counts of causing or inciting a child under the age of 13 to engage in sexual activity, and sexual assault of a child under 13. He also asked the media not to name the sex offender so that his anonymity would be protected. Are those crimes not much worse than what Mr Lynch did? We asked Judge Richardson to explain the discrepancy in his sentencing. He has not yet responded. Keir Starmer put massive pressure on the judges to dish out long sentences. He labelled people with genuine concerns about immigration as far-right racist thugs. He let violent thugs out of prison so that people like Mr Lynch could be squeezed into a cell. He created what many think are political prisoners. And now one of them, Mr Lynch, is dead. His children don't have a father. His grandchildren don't have him as a granddad anymore. Now, it means that more people have died in prison than died as a result of the riots. People on the hard left, like Hope Not Hates Nick Lowles, who tweeted out what appears to be genuine misinformation, actually, that was, in my view, quite likely to cause violence and harm, have gone unpunished. The woman who threw a milkshake at Nigel Farage has pleaded guilty in court today. Will she get 32 months in prison? The question is this, OK? When Sir Keir Starmer said this...
Over 400 people now have been arrested, 100 have been charged, some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message to anybody involved, either directly or online.
Was he signing a death sentence for Peter Lynch? Let's get our thoughts from our panel now. Former Conservative MP, Dame Andrea Jenkins. I'm also joined by journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. And we have the former chairman of the Tory party as well, Sir Jake Berry. Dame Andrea, I'll start with you. Do you think that Keir Starmer has to bear some responsibility for the death of Mr Lynch?
I do. I mean, clearly, as you've already suggested, Patrick, there was a very ill man he didn't commit any violence. Yes, he'd said some silly things which we wouldn't necessarily condone, but to have all that time in prison to a very ill man, it's wrong. And as we saw, the Home Office, I saw that tweet myself where they was condemning people before there was a fair trial. And with Starmer's words there, it's just wrong. And if anything, it's very sad. And we've got a family here who have been given a life sentence of grief through the actions of all the others. And looking at Hope Not Hate, he really needs to, be taken to task with this. I mean, even in the lead-up to the election, I was one of 10 MPs who their target is as being racist, and they put this document out there. I'm not a racist, but they label people just because I want to, control illegal migration. I was on their hit list, and nobody ever takes these to task. So well done, Patrick, for calling him out as well.
Well, Joe, what do you think about this? Do you think that it has to be some responsibility? I suppose it hinges on whether or not we think that Keir Starmer lent on the judiciary and the judiciary caved into that.
Well, I think he did.
Yes.
And, as Prime Minister of this great nation, if you go out and make statements like, and I'm sure there was nothing more than the statements he made, I don't think there was any sort of picking the phone up to him. If you go out and make statements like these people must face severe sentences and things like that, the judiciary listen. And, this is a tragedy. Let's look at what Peter Lynch did. He went to... he held up a placard with some slightly bizarre conspiracy theorist views. He called police officers scum. I'm sure not the worst thing they've been called in the world.
Angela Rayner does with Conservatives.
Yeah, Angela Rayner shouted scum at Tory MPs.
Yeah,
She's not been sent to prison. And then he said some other things. But, all of those I abhor and disagree with, and I think they're completely wrong. I just don't think they warrant a prison sentence.
OK.
If you speak to a Metropolitan Police officer and say, are people shouting abuse at you in the street in London or Lancashire Constabulary, they'll say yes, but not everyone goes to prison for it. This was judicial activism caving in to political pressure.
So we've had quite strong views there. Look, Benjamin, do you think that Keir Starmer bears any responsibility for the fact that this man appears to have taken his own life behind bars?
No, and I think that would be an incredibly dangerous slope to try and blame a politician, let alone the Prime Minister, for a decision of a judge in a court. The sentencing guidelines will not have been introduced by Keir Starmer in the last few months. The laws which this man was convicted under will not have been introduced by Keir Starmer. And I think it's very wrong whether you support or oppose a particular sentence to have a politician putting undue pressure on a judge. I think that's not the way that a democracy should seriously function.
And you don't think that's what happened? So when he said things like, I expect severe sentences, and then when the Home Office tweeted out, these criminals need to be jailed for a long time, you don't think that was putting pressure on judges?
The judges can only do what the sentencing guidelines already say. And the fact is, these riots were contagious. It is a social contagion. That's why they are so much more dangerous than an isolated incident. And, the fact is that the real question here is one for the doctors. Was he medically fit on a physical level, and did they assess his mental health if that was linked to why he died? That is where the responsibility lies. But the idea that because somebody reacted badly, you somehow shouldn't be convicted of a crime. This man didn't just verbally assault. He didn't just verbally assault police officers. He also said racist things, according to what the court found.
These people who are in prison now for doing terrible things, I'm not saying what they've done is right. Yeah. They didn't get a fair trial. The speed at which it was done, it was a process rather than a trial.
You might want to defend racists,
and the other thing, no, I don't. I think it's abhorrent, but they didn't get a fair trial. A lot of them pleaded guilty, and it seems to me, I don't know. It seems to me that lots of plea bargains were done because a lot of them pleaded guilty.
Yeah.
It wasn't a fair trial in the way that we would understand it. It was more like a conveyor belt to send people to prison.
And look at the
that's
headlines.
Where it's wrong.
Well, look at the headlines just even the last couple of weeks where, a dozen paedophiles didn't get a sentence.
Well, then why didn't you change the rules when you were both in Parliament?
Well, the thing is, the sentencing guidelines are very broad.
Rich of you to sit
sorry, Benjamin. Let me just... I don't actually think you understand how sentencing guidelines work. So every offence will have a broad range of punishment that can be applied to it. And things like, have you committed an offence before, would normally mean that you would avoid a custodial sentence. I don't think this individual had committed an offence.
Not as far as I'm aware.
Not as far as I'm aware. But because of the political pressure brought by Keir Starmer, judges looked at those guidelines, thought, right, we'll go for the most severe sentence because it is a moment of national crisis. And all of the things that you would normally have as mitigation that would keep you out of prison, like I've got kids, I'm a young mum, you know, all of those things were thrown to the wind because of the political pressure. That's why this man went to prison. That's why he's dead.
It's not why he's dead, and that's an unacceptable thing to say. It's for the coroner to assess that, not you. But I was actually referring to paedophiles. The fact they're not locked up is abhorrent, and I think that should have been changed years ago.
OK, fine. Andrew, there is another aspect to this. A lot of people pointed this out at the time. And again, I will stress, look, I think going to one of these events and, look, getting involved with police and saying what you said was daft.
Yes.
Right? It was daft.
Yes.
We've not done that.
And criminal.
And criminal. There are things that people did, like literally set fire to a migrant hotel. And there was the incident of the bloke who literally had a swastika tattooed on his back, which I think we can all agree implies that he's a massive racist, right? Yeah. But this guy was not one of those people, right? This guy called the police officer scum and, you know, shouted some pretty fruity stuff, all right? But that's what that was. It was non-violent. But sending someone to a prison with essentially the word racist tattooed on your back or pinned to your front and back, I mean, that's probably one step above being a paedophile in prison.
Yeah, and let's face it, in these, you know, working class communities which Jake and I represented for several years, they're so proud and pride matters to them, and to be labelled something like that would be crushing for them. And I think it's dangerous.
Massively dangerous.
Absolutely, and it's crushing. And clearly, to me, I mean, we don't know. We need to wait for the coroner's report. He couldn't take any more, and it's so sad. And what I really take umbrage with, that we saw only recently violent prisoners being let out of prison to make way for these who should not be there.
I don't know why you're expressing sympathy with the idea that the consequences of being called racist would have been deeply unpleasant for him. He was found to be racist because he said racist things. That was the judgment of the court. What other crime would you say you shouldn't apply the word for the crime?
We're expressing sympathy.
I don't have sympathy for a convicted
We're expressing sympathy because he's a human being and he's dead. Right?
No,
let's deal with that first of all. That's why we're expressing. We don't agree with what he did.
I'm referring
to a human being and he is dead.
So let's look at
that.
Guys, that wasn't what I said.
I know what you meant. I know what you meant.
But I think the point that, you know, is being missed, and I think is a really important point, and it does speak to Keir Starmer's potential personal culpability about this, is the massive political pressure that was put on judges to go to the most severe end of the sentencing guideline. They have huge discretion. We've just heard from Andrea. You know, paedophiles are not sent to prison. They have huge discretion to go to the most severe end of the sentencing guidelines and jail these people. And it seems to me, although we don't know yet, it's very, very unlikely that this individual would have taken his own life if he wasn't locked up in a prison cell and labelled a racist.
Exactly. And look,
he wasn't labelled a racist. He was a racist.
Okay. Right. We have to ask ourselves.
Proven to be a racist.
This is the crux of it, isn't it? Really. Let's imagine that incident happened in complete isolation, and that we had there Peter Lynch, who one day decided to wander around on the streets, call police officers scum, say some admittedly very, very fruity things and wrong things about asylum seekers. Okay, and then say whatever he said on top of that, you know, call police officers scum. So, would he have got 32 months in prison? No, absolutely not. It was part of a bigger thing. Did that stuff come from Keir Starmer? Did he put pressure on it? I think many people think he did, in which case does he have to bear some responsibility for it? But look, obviously strong views on all sides of this, so thank you very much for that.